Have you ever stopped, maybe while preparing a meal, to really think about the journey that food took? Not just the cooking part, but the whole enormous, complex system that a nation like India has to build, just to make sure its people get fed.
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Because it's about so much more than just logistics.
Exactly. It's a story woven into, well, survival itself, dignity, national progress even.
And that story, that profound narrative, is what we're hoping to unravel for you today. This deep dive is really our exploration into what it truly means for India to nourish its, vast population. We'll be looking into the core ideas of food security, recalling some of the historical struggles that shaped things, celebrating the big successes.
Like a green revolution, presumably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also acknowledging the ongoing, very real challenges of making sure every single person has enough safe, nutritious food every day.
So we've gathered quite a bit of material, looked through different sources for you, our listener. And the idea is to turn all these facts and figures into, well, a story about India's journey with food.
Right. Trying to give a full picture, but hopefully an engaging one.
Sure.
From the basic concepts right through to how it all works or sometimes doesn't on the ground.
Okay, let's jump in then. Let's start right at the beginning. When we talk about a country being food secure, what are the absolute basics, the non-negotiables?
Well, fundamentally, it boils down to three critical pillars. Think of them as the legs of a stool, really. Availability, accessibility, and affordability of food.
Availability, accessibility, affordability.
Availability just means there's enough food around,
Yeah.
whether it's grown domestically or, imported, enough quantity.
And accessibility, that's about being able to physically get it.
Precisely. People need to be able to reach that food wherever they might live. No geographical barriers, ideally.
And the third one, affordability. That feels like where the rubber really meets the road, doesn't it?
It really does. Because it's not enough for food to just be there on a shelf or in a market.
Yeah.
You, as an individual, as a family, need to have the economic means, the money, to actually buy enough of it.
And not just any food, but sufficient, safe, nutritious food for your daily needs.
Exactly. It connects the physical presence of food to actual consumption. That's the crucial link.
So if all three, availability, accessibility, affordability, are strong, then we have food security.
That's the ideal, yes. Enough food for everyone. Everyone can afford good quality food, and there are no sort of systemic barriers stopping them from getting it. And what's interesting is how this definition itself has, evolved, been refined. The 1995 World Food Summit came up with a pretty comprehensive one.
What was that again?
It stated that food security exists when all people, at all times, have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life.
All people, at all times. That's a high bar.
It is physical and economic access. Sufficient, safe, and nutritious. It covers a lot.
But wasn't there more? I remember reading about Amartya Sen, the Nobel laureate. He added something significant, didn't he? About entitlements.
Ah, yes. Professor Sen's contribution was crucial. His concept of entitlements. It wasn't just an academic point. It really shifted the understanding.
How so?
He emphasized that just having food available in a region or country means very little if people lack the legitimate means to acquire it.
Legitimate means like having a job or being able to trade or receiving aid.
Exactly. Your entitlement to food comes through those channels. So his work highlighted that hunger isn't always just about a shortage of food overall. It can be, and often is, a problem of access, of economic rights, of people not having the entitlement to claim the food that is available.
That's a profound shift. It moves it from just a supply problem to a systemic one.
Precisely. And for millions, these definitions, these pillars, availability, accessibility, affordability, entitlement, they aren't abstract concepts.
Yeah.
They literally determine if a family eats well, if they just about manage, or if they go hungry.
Which brings us to the human cost when things go wrong. If food security is the goal, who are the people most likely to suffer when the system fails? Who are the most vulnerable?
Well, generally, it's the poorest households, of course. But even within that, certain groups face much higher risks.
Like who?
People like agricultural laborers, those without land, traditional artisans whose livelihoods might be precarious, casual workers in cities and villages, and, sadly, the destitute, those with no support system at all.
Living right on the edge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Often without any kind of safety net to fall back on.
Let's make this more concrete. You mentioned agricultural laborers. Imagine someone, let's call him Ramu, a rickshaw puller, maybe in a rural area or small town. How does something like the seasonal nature of agriculture affect his family's food security?
Ramu's situation or similar ones are tragically common. Agriculture, by its nature, is seasonal. So there are periods, maybe 4 months or so each year, when there's just much less work available in rural areas.
The lean season.
Exactly. During that time, someone like Ramu, or a casual farm laborer, faces unemployment or drastically reduced income. This directly and immediately impacts his family's ability to buy food. It becomes a real struggle, a constant worry.
A constant tightrope walk, as you said earlier. And looking back, India's history has some truly harrowing examples of what happens when these vulnerabilities combine with larger crises. What stands out as the most devastating famine?
Without a doubt, that would be the Bengal famine of 1943. It's a scar on the nation's memory. The scale was just horrific. 30 lakh people died.
30 lakh, 3 million people.
3 million. And what makes it even more complex and heartbreaking is when you look at the food availability numbers. In 1941, Bengal had about 85 lakh tons of food grains available.
Okay.
But in 1942, that dropped sharply to 70 lakh tons, a 15 lakh ton drop. That significant decline, combined with wartime inflation, distribution issues, hoarding, it created the conditions for catastrophe.
So it wasn't just no food, but a sharp reduction and a failure of access.
Precisely. And who suffered most? It was the agricultural laborers, again, fishermen, transport workers, other casual laborers. They were hit hardest, partly because the price of rice, their staple food, just soared beyond their reach.
And famine isn't just starvation, is it? There are other terrible consequences.
Oh, absolutely. Famines bring widespread death, not just from hunger, but also from disease outbreaks. Epidemics spread through contaminated water or decaying food. People's bodies weaken, their resistance collapses, making them susceptible to everything. It's a complete breakdown of health and society.
It's chilling to think about. And even after independence, while large-scale famines like Bengal were averted, the fight against hunger continued. You mentioned data from the late 90s.
Yes, even as recently as 1998-99, the National Health and Family Survey found something quite shocking. Around 11 crore women and children in India were food insecure.
11 crore. That's 110 million people, still facing food insecurity decades after the Green Revolution had begun.
Yes, and these struggles weren't and aren't evenly spread across the country. There are specific regions where food insecurity is much more concentrated.
Whereabouts are those typically?
We see higher levels in eastern and southeastern parts of Uttar Pradesh, large parts of Bihar, Jharkhand, Orissa, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, and also some areas in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. These tend to be areas with higher poverty rates and often dependent on rain-fed agriculture.
So hunger itself isn't just one thing. It has different forms, right?
Okay. We usually talk about two main dimensions, chronic hunger and seasonal hunger.
Okay, what's the difference?
Chronic hunger is more about a long-term, persistent inadequacy. Either the quantity or the quality of the diet is consistently poor. This is often linked directly to very low incomes, making it impossible to afford enough food regularly.
A constant state of not having enough.
Pretty much. Whereas seasonal hunger is tied to those cycles we talked about earlier. It's very common in rural areas because of the seasonal nature of farming, planting, harvesting, etc.
And in cities.
You see it in urban areas too, especially among casual laborers.
Hmm.
Think of construction workers, for example. During the rainy season, work often dries up, leading to a period of seasonal hunger for them and their families.
So understanding these different types of hunger is key to tackling them effectively.
Absolutely. These stories, these statistics, they really highlight just how fragile the balance of food security can be and the profound day-to-day impact it has on people's lives.
But as you said, India's story isn't just about vulnerability. There's also incredible resilience, massive effort. Let's shift to that side. How did India move from those terrible famines and widespread hunger towards, well, self-sufficiency?
The big turning point, the real game changer, was the Green Revolution. It started gaining momentum in the late 1960s, really took off in the early 70s.
And this focused mainly on...
Primarily on wheat and rice, using high-yield variety seeds, expanding irrigation, using fertilizers and pesticides. It led to a dramatic increase in production. It essentially made India self-sufficient in food grains, which was a monumental achievement.
a true agricultural revolution. I remember reading about Prime Minister Indira Gandhi releasing a special postage stamp, Wheat Revolution, back in July 1968. That must have been a moment of huge national pride.
Oh, definitely. It symbolized India taking control of its food destiny, moving away from dependence on imports, especially humiliating PL 480 imports from the U.S. The numbers show the success story.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
Well, India's total food grain production crossed the 200 million ton mark for the first time in the year 2001, and it kept climbing, reaching around 245 million tons later. That's a massive increase from the pre-Green Revolution era.
Wow. But producing all that food is one thing. Ensuring it gets distributed fairly, especially to those who need it most, that's another challenge entirely. How did India set up a system for that?
Right. So alongside boosting production, India developed a robust food security system. It really has two main components: maintaining a buffer stock of food grains and the public distribution system, the PDS.
Okay, let's break those down. The buffer stock, what is that
The
exactly?
buffer stock is basically the government's strategic reserve. It's a stock of food grains, mainly wheat and rice, that the government procures and holds.
And who manages this?
The Food Corporation of India, the FCI. It's the main government agency responsible for procuring the grains from farmers, storing them, and then releasing them as needed.
How do they procure it? Do farmers just sell to them?
They procure it largely through offering a minimum support price, or MSP, for certain crops. The government announces this price before the sowing season.
The MSP, we hear a lot about that. It's essentially a guaranteed price for the farmers, right?
Exactly. It acts as an incentive. Farmers know they have a buyer at a pre-declared price, which encourages them to invest and grow those specific crops, ensuring supply for the buffer stock. It's a form of subsidy, really.
Right, a subsidy being a payment the government makes to producers, in this case farmers, to supplement the market price and encourage production.
Precisely. It ensures sufficient procurement for the national reserve.
Okay, so the FCI buys the grain using MSP, stores it in the buffer stock. Then what? How does it get from the FCI go-downs to the people?
That's where the second component, the public distribution system, or PDS, comes in.
Yeah.
It's the distribution arm.
The PDS, that's the network of ration shops, right?
Yes. Food grains procured by the FCI from the buffer stock are allocated to states and then distributed through this vast network of government-regulated ration shops, specifically targeting the poorer sections of society.
And they sell it at a lower price.
Yes, at what's called an issue price, which is significantly lower than the market price, making it affordable for vulnerable populations.
It's quite something to think that rationing, the basic idea of the PDS, actually started in India way back in the 1940s, specifically because of the Bengal famine.
It's a direct link, yes. A policy born directly out of that catastrophe. The system has obviously evolved hugely since then.
How so? What other programs came along?
Well, facing high poverty levels in the mid-1970s, India realized the PDS alone wasn't enough. So three major food intervention programs took shape around that time. There was the PDS itself, then the Integrated Child Development Services, or ICDS.
ICDS focuses on young children and mothers, right? Nutrition, health checkups.
Exactly. And the third was Food for Work, or FFW, which aimed to provide food security through wage employment, offering food grains as part payment for work on public projects. A more holistic approach started emerging.
So the system isn't one size fits all. How does it differentiate between levels of need? You mentioned poorer sections.
It uses different types of ration cards to target subsidies. Broadly, you have anti-diet cards for the absolute poorest of the poor.
Anti-diet.
Then BPL cards for those identified as below poverty line, and APL cards for those above poverty line. The level of subsidy and the quantity of grains one can get varies depending on the card type.
So going back to our example, Ahmad, the rickshaw puller, if he had a yellow card, what would that signify?
A yellow card typically identifies him as a BPL card holder. This would allow him or his family to buy essential items like wheat, rice, sugar, maybe kerosene from the ration shop at a price significantly lower than the market, often around half the price.
That makes a massive difference to a family budget.
A huge difference. It's a lifeline for many.
And this whole framework, it's backed by law now, isn't it?
Yes, the National Food Security Act, passed in 2013, was a major step. It legally entitled a large portion of the population to receive subsidized food grains.
How large portion?
It aimed to cover up to 75% of the rural population and up to 50% of the urban population, categorizing them as eligible households. It gave legal backing to the right to food, essentially.
And the system kept evolving even before the act.
Oh, yes. For instance, in June 1997, the government launched the Targeted Public Distribution System, or TPDS. This specifically aimed to target the poor more effectively by introducing different prices for poor and non-poor families.
So moving away from a universal subsidy towards a more targeted one.
Correct. And then, to reach the most vulnerable among the poor, the Antyodaya Anna Yojana, or AAY, was launched in December 2000.
That was for the poorest of the poor.
Exactly. targeting those BPL families who were worst off. Initially, it provided 25 kilograms of food grains per eligible family per month at highly subsidized rates. That quantity was later increased too.
It's an incredibly intricate system, a massive logistical and administrative undertaking built over decades.
It really is a testament to India's commitment to tackling hunger. But, like any massive system, it's not without its own set of challenges and sometimes unintended consequences.
Right. No large-scale solution is ever perfect. Despite the success in production and distribution networks, what are some of the, let's say, unforeseen bumps or persistent problems?
Well, one major issue that emerged, ironically, is what's sometimes called the problem of plenty.
Plenty is a problem. How?
Because the success in procurement, driven by MSP, led to FCI go-downs overflowing with grain. Maintaining these huge buffer stocks incurs very high carrying costs, storage, warehousing, pest control administration,
And wastage.
and significant wastage, unfortunately. Grains can deteriorate in quality over time if storage isn't perfect or if stock rotation is slow. So you have this paradox of overflowing stocks alongside concerns about quality and cost.
That's fascinating. And what about the environmental side? We touched on the Green Revolution boosting production, but that must have had an impact.
A significant one. The push for higher yields, especially for water-guzzling crops like rice, heavily incentivized by MSP in certain regions, led to really intensive water use.
Meaning more irrigation.
Yes, massive groundwater extraction, 2 wells. This has resulted in serious environmental degradation in some of the most productive agricultural belts, particularly a worrying fall in water table levels.
So solving food scarcity created a water scarcity issue in some areas, a complex trade-off.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of these systems. You fix one thing, but you might put pressure on another.
Okay, let's look at the PDS itself, the ration shops. How effective is it on the ground? We know the theory, but what about the practice?
Well, there are positive signs. Data shows that, for example, in rural India, the average consumption of PDS rice per person per month actually doubled between 2004-05 and later years. So it is reaching people.
That's good news.
It is. But challenges definitely persist. Malpractices at the level of the ration shops are unfortunately quite common in some areas.
What kind of malpractices?
Things like diverting grains meant for beneficiaries into the open market to sell at higher prices, or selling poor quality grains through the PDS while keeping the good stock aside. Irregular opening hours are another common complaint, making it hard for people, especially daily wage earners, to access their entitlement.
Undermining the whole purpose.
Completely. It erodes trust and effectiveness.
And what about the targeting? You mentioned the TPDS aimed for better targeting with APL, BPL distinctions. How has that worked out?
It's had mixed results. One issue that emerged with the TPDS was regarding the above poverty line, or APL, families. Often the price difference between the PDS issue price for APL families and the open market price was quite small.
So not much incentive for them to buy from the ration shop.
Exactly. If the price is almost the same, and maybe the quality is perceived as lower or the shop is inconvenient, APL families might just buy from the open market anyway, so the subsidy might not effectively reach them, or the system becomes less relevant for that group.
That makes sense. So given these complexities and gaps in the large national system, do local initiatives play a role? Is there innovation happening at the community level?
Oh, absolutely. And this is a really important part of the picture. Cooperatives, for instance, play a vital role, especially in southern and western parts of India.
How do they help?
They often set up their own fair price shops, selling essential goods to poor people at low prices, sometimes more efficiently or reliably than the government PDS shops in that area. They fill crucial gaps.
Any specific examples?
Well, look at Mother Dairy in Delhi. It's a cooperative success story, making milk and vegetables available to consumers at controlled rates, ensuring both quality and affordability for millions. Amul in Gujarat is another giant example of cooperative success impacting livelihoods and consumers.
Right. And beyond these larger cooperatives, are there even more grassroots efforts?
Yes. For example, the work done by NGOs like the Academy of Development Science, ADS, in Maharashtra, they've helped facilitate a network of NGOs to establish grain banks in different regions.
Grain banks, how do they work?
They're essentially community-managed reserves of grain. Villagers can deposit grain after harvest and then withdraw it during lean seasons or times of need, often functioning as a form of local insurance or credit system. It provides a crucial layer of food security right at the village level, sometimes much more responsive than waiting for formal aid.
So these community solutions really complement the national structure.
They do. They show that while large-scale policy is essential, real-world implementation often needs that local adaptation, that community involvement, to be truly effective. Sometimes the most creative solutions come from the ground up.
So, reflecting on everything we've discussed, it's quite a journey. We started with the basic meaning of food security, those three pillars,
Availability, accessibility, affordability.
and sense entitlements. Right. Then we looked back at the haunting history, the Bengal famine, the scale of vulnerability,
Understanding who gets hit hardest when the system fails.
and then the incredible response, the Green Revolution, building self-sufficiency, constructing this massive PDS and buffer stock system.
A truly monumental effort involving MSP, the FCI, ration cards, the National Food Security Act,
Wow.
layer upon layer of policy.
But also acknowledging the complexities that came with it, the overflowing stocks, the environmental pressures, the challenges in PDS delivery.
And finally, seeing how cooperatives and community initiatives like grain banks play their part too. It's a complex tapestry.
It really is. We've seen how the system aims to protect people, the impact it has on individuals like Ramu or Ahmad, but also the constant need for adaptation and improvement.
It underscores that nourishing a nation, especially one as vast and diverse as India, is never a finished job. The foundations might be strong, but the work continues.
So, perhaps the question we leave you, our listener, with is this. What does this ongoing story mean for the future? How do we balance these huge national policies with the very diverse, very real needs on the ground?
And how do we keep innovating? How do we ensure those pillars, availability, accessibility, affordability, stand strong for every single person, but do it in a way that doesn't compromise the environment, our water, our soil, for future generations?
It's that intricate dance, isn't it, between policy, economics, the environment, technology, and ultimately human dignity.
Exactly. It's a story that's still unfolding and one that affects us all, directly or indirectly. Something to definitely keep thinking about.